Hi, everyone, and welcome to Live Your Happy TV. I am Maria Felipe, and I am so excited to be joining you with just another amazing guest on our channel. I love doing these every month, and I love bringing somebody new. And Christians really has a good eye for bringing us really great teachers. And he found this gem, and I just really like her. She's very spunky. She kind of reminds me of like the Boston version of me. And she is a spiritual mentor and a writer and a speaker. And her name is Karen. Is it Karen Kenney?
Kenney, yes.
Karen Kenney. And she is the founder of Fearless Flow. That's her brand. And she helps people get the hell out of their way. She says the word F, but I'm saying she helps people get the hell out of their own way, which I love because it's, my book is called Live Your Happy, Get Out of Your Own Way and Find the Love Within. So it's totally in alignment with my work. So I figured, hey, let's have her on. So welcome, Karen.
Hey, Marie, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I've been aware of you and your sweetie as individuals, but I wasn't aware that you were together. And I'm so excited to make that connection, have that aha moment. I love the work that both of you are doing. I have your, we just talked about that. I have your book back here.
I love it.
Yeah, so it's such a joy and a pleasure to be a guest. So thank you for having me.
Well, I'm grateful to be here, and I love that my book is such in good company with Gary's books because his books are so good. So it's an honor.
I have a ton of, actually, my Course in Miracles library is huge, but most of it's downstairs. But I was like, oh, I have a few up here today in case we need to reference them or whatever. But I definitely wanted to bring yours up here. So
awesome, thank you. Well, the first thing I wanted to get started with is when you say you help people get out of their own way. Or out of their way, what do you mean?
I mean, I think for me, it's that we're all. So I'm a writer and a storyteller, and so as a storyteller, I love stories. And what I always say is, stories are a total blast until your stories start telling you. And I always say, I love to tell stories, but as soon as your stories start to tell you that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not lovable, that you're a sinner, whatever the crap is that your head is telling you, then we're in trouble. And so one of the things I like to help people do is to, I talk about it in a 4-step process where we tell the story, right? We acknowledge, okay, these are the things I believe happened within this illusion or whatever. Tell the story, let go of the story, rewrite the story, and then go out into the world and live the new story. And I think so often we do get in our own ways about these conditioned beliefs or these old stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, our brothers and sisters, the world, what God is, who we think we are. And we're always just getting in our own way, all those barriers that the Course talks about, all these barriers to our own awareness of love's presence. And so I like to kind of go in and help people remove the barriers and get out of their own way so that they can actually have, what you talk about, live in a really happy, joyous way. And not this fake kind of, I'm just going to fake it till I make it, but really, truly feel aligned and connected with your spiritual team, with God, with love, and so that they can show up in a really helpful way so that they actually show up in the world as being helpful and not a hindrance.
Yeah, and I love that you say feel. You got to feel your feelings. There's a part of my book that I actually say that, feel your feelings. And the Course is teaching us actually to really go within and to heal all that darkness, to really go within and feel. And you have to go through that kind of purge of all that unconscious guilt that is within, which relates to all the stories that we make up and hinder us and our barriers. And so I feel like it's important what you're saying, because I feel that some people just want to skip and not feel
the hard part.
Don't want to do the work. And they're like, oh, I want to heal, but not really, because they just want to jump over and they don't want to feel their feelings. They want to just, watch TV or, not meditate or not do the work. So it's interesting. So I love that you say that, the part about, really going there and digging deep and going, seeing what those barriers are, rewriting stories. Because I think that one of the reasons we suffer is because of the stories that we've made up that are not even remotely true, but they feel really very real.
Yes, yes. And so one of the things I always tell my mentoring clients, we hear it a lot, like it can be so easy for Course in Miracles people to do the whole, but it's not real. And I'm like, yeah, but you're missing that level of teaching where it feels real to people. So I always say to people, yes, don't make it real, and really just don't make it a big deal. This is just the human experience in the illusion, is that we do feel separate, and we do feel competitive, and we do feel a little insane. And one of the lines I love from A Course in Miracles where it says, forgive yourself your madness. And that's what it is. We kind of have this madness, about us. And I think that so in yoga, we often say, in order to heal, you need to feel. And it's like, so it's not skipping that important part of acknowledging your suffering. And then what I always say to people is just don't build an altar to your suffering. Don't set a plate for it at your table. Have the experience, acknowledge, yes, this thing happened, but Marianne talks about it. My friend Marianne Williamson once said this beautiful thing to me. She said, anytime that you don't drag your past into the present, you are reborn. And I love to think about that. And what so many of us do is like we carry this big bag full of our past and our history and our stories. And it's like we show up in relationships and then we're like, hi, it's me. And here's all my shit. Here's all my stuff that I'm bringing with me. And it's like, oh, all set. No thanks. You know what I mean? So it's like our job to like come correct and really look at those places where we are hauling around these unresolved feelings. And once you actually face them and meet them head on, you can transform them with the help of Spirit, Holy Spirit, Jesus, whoever you consider to be, your help is,
Yeah, it's so powerful. I love everything you're saying, because I feel that, we make things, going back to what you were saying before, is like we really make things matter. And I talk about this a lot of like, we make it such a big deal and we get transed out. And, the spirit is very light. It's very flowy. It doesn't make things so real, but the ego makes it very real, and it feels real because we're feeling it.
Yes.
The story thing is really, I identify with it, especially the relationships part, because my biggest grievance in this lifetime, and one of my biggest forgiveness lessons, has been relationships, which a lot of us could relate to. And one of them being, I would get lost in my relationships, especially with men. I would make men my God.
Yes.
And towards the end, I remember, towards the end of my book, I talk about this, of that I finally had a healing when I was able to do the work that you do, which is go back to my stories. And I remember that one day I was suffering on my couch and just thinking about this guy I was going out with, and thinking about how am I going to text him? How am I going to get him to come over after he told me that he wasn't good relationship material? And I'm trying to get him over to my house.
After he's told you I'm no good, you insist, like, no, it'll be different. I'll fix it. Yeah, because we're crazy. Yeah, forgive yourself your madness, because we're nuts. Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
This is what we do. So I was like on the couch and thinking, and then all of a sudden I just felt so sad. I was like, why can't I have the opposite of this? Why can't I have the opposite of this stress? Why can't I have the opposite of feeling like I'm not worthy of love? Yes. Why can't this be easy? Like, I feel like I feel like this doesn't come easy to me. This thing with having relationship and love in my life, or romance. And the Holy Spirit, I had like a revelation of just a inspired thought that said, you need to forgive. And, the course, which we'll get into now, we'll talk about forgiveness, but and I was like, I need to forgive, and I need to forgive what, and the voice said, you need to forgive your father. And my father had passed away from, he committed suicide when I was 3 months old. So basically I downloaded the 7-step, it's funny, it's called the 7-step fearless process. So it goes totally with your work. It was really the 7-step forgiveness process, but we put it in the fearless chapter, so it's 7-step fearless. And I had to do what you're saying. I had to go back in time and go back to the story that I made up about my father. I made it mean that he abandoned me when he committed suicide.
Yes.
And then not only that, Karen, the voice said I had to forgive all the men in my life. I had to go back in time and forgive them all. And I was like, holy shit. That's a big list. That's a big list.
How much time do we have?
So I went through every week. I picked, every week, every day I picked a few men, and every day I healed, and I went back in time of the story I made up about it.
Yes.
And then with Holy Spirit helped me to be able to rewrite the story.
Yes.
And to be able to see it differently. So it's kind of what you're talking about, which is really neat. And I feel that process, even though it kicked my ass, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
Yes.
I was so tired. It was like having the flu.
Yes.
I feel that at that moment, Karen, I felt that finally I had a healing happen of where I was able to allow Christian to come in my life, because there was no space for him and where I was before. His soul would not be with a soul like mine at the time that was so needy and wasn't and was looking for love outside of me and for him to complete me. Christian soul does not like that. So I needed to have like this clean slate and this self-love to be able to have such a beautiful spirit.
I always say to my I'm hearing everything you're saying loud and clear, and I'm just like laughing because I'm like, yep. I often tell my students or my clients, like, it's hard to be full of God. It's hard to be full of love when you're already full of shit. And so it's like totally being able to go in and however you describe it, like heal those wounds, let go of the stories, rewrite the stories. Like the language doesn't even really matter. It's just that you're actually doing the work. And that's forgiveness, this forgiveness task, this overwhelming task that you just described where you had to go in and do all that. I had my own version of it. And my version of it is that my mom was murdered when I was 12. And she started coming to me in my dreams and saying, I've forgiven the man that killed me. Now it's your turn. But I had no idea how to do that. And that's really eventually what led me to Marianne Williamson and her book, A Return to Love, and then which led me to A Course in Miracles. And it was through that process of really like diving into that wound and figuring out like, wow, how do you forgive? You know, and look, everybody's got their story. It's not like my story is special, but something of that magnitude where somebody like as a little kid, you feel like you were 3 months old. So you weren't able to process it at that time, but you still felt the effects of that, that missing person and that loss. Even if another person came in physically to take on that role in some way, you still like, I just think that psychic wound that we have or whatever, you're aware of it. And so the power of A Course in Miracles was to be able to really reframe all these stories I had written about my mother leaving and the way that she left because it was so violent and brutal in her suffering. And I realized that like the only time that I suffer about my mom is when I think of her final moments of suffering. Otherwise, if I choose to place my mind where I want it, which is the beautiful time I had with her in those 12 short years, then I am in a joyous state. And so, you know, when the Course says, and you know, they say it in other disciplines too, like yoga and stuff, that an untrained mind, an undisciplined mind can accomplish nothing. And I always laugh and I'm like, no, it actually accomplishes a lot of suffering is what it does. Because if I can't control to place my mind where I want it, it's going to go willy-nilly because that little ego is such a bastard. Like it wants you to feel separate. It wants you to feel small and scared and insecure and unaware of your own power. And so what a gift and a blessing. And I know everybody usually like has a story of how the Course found them. I always say, I didn't find the Course. The Course came to me and totally radically changed my life because it taught me how to change my thoughts. And it taught me that I had a choice about the quality of thoughts I was having. And, you know, to kind of go back to that feeling thing, like we are taught, you know, all this, but we're taught that, you know, the world is the cause of our suffering and that we just can't help how I feel. How many times have you heard people say, but it's just how I feel. I can't help it. It's just how I feel. And I always try to remind myself, first of all, and then other people, it's like your feelings are actually generated by a thought that you have. So if you don't like how you're feeling, choose a better feeling thought. And that's what I learned to do with my mom is I choose, you know, and I'm writing a memoir like you. I'm a writer. And so I'm writing a memoir about my mom and that forgiveness process and journey and all that. And so I have to think about those final awful moments. I've gone and seen the evidence. I've seen the brutality. I've held pieces of her teeth in my hands from the evidence room. And like, you know, I placed myself there specifically, but I did it out of love. Like I did it to be able to tell her story, but in a way where it's actually redemptive now. Like it actually transcends the brutality, and it moves into a place of healing. And so, you know, I just totally hear you about being like the willingness that it takes, the courage that it takes, Maria, to go and do what you did and to really face that, whether you were 3 months old or not. Like that, I always say, like, as long as we have bodies, we believe that they're real. So there's this DNA thing where that's like one of those wounds. And then to understand like, oh, that initial core wound has affected every other choice that I've made.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was abandoned at this young, like, yeah, I don't deserve much. So I'm just going to keep choosing guys who, even if they tell me they're not good relationship material, I'm not going to listen. We've all done it. Raise your hand. So I just love that you shared that, and that you had the guts or the chutzpah, the balls or whatever, to go back and say, this is my work.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't for anybody else to fix for me. Like, this is my work. And that is about living fearlessly, which I love.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, it's true, because I felt that at that moment, it's so unconscious, because I was like, forgive my father. I don't even remember him. It was like I was 3 months old. So the wound is so unconscious. But when I went back in time and I started to say the story, there was so much that came, and all these tears came, and all this deep wounded sadness. I was like, what the hell is this? Like I had no idea this was within me. So I'm carrying around that. And not only that, then going to all the other relationships and how destructive they were, how I really accepted men into my life. And I mean, it was just horrifying, like the type of relationships I would have. And I didn't realize it until I did that process. But going back to what you're saying, I feel that it takes something. You know, I just wrote an article on it, that really says basically the title is "It Takes Something." And I feel like this whole spiritual process of healing, like for instance, like what you did with your mom, that, you know, a lot of people could relate to, especially I'm happy you brought that up, because I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this, it's helpful to be able to hear your story of how you're able to see death differently. Because that's like a big thing. And I feel that, for instance, for myself, it's like, you have to want to heal, period. And I remember when I was doing the process and I was crying every day, and I was doing this process with men, and it really took cojones, like you said, it really took something. I remember when I was like, God, Spirit, I just want to have love in my life. I want to feel worthy of having somebody in my life so I can share my life with, my ministry with. And I remember Spirit saying, no, you don't. No, you're not ready. And I was like, what the hell? I'm crying every day. I'm doing this work. Yes. But you know what? I love that Spirit spoke to me like that, because it kicked me in the butt. Because I feel like I did want to heal, but not really, because you still want to hang on to something.
You want it, right. You want it to, right. So whether it's one of the exercises I do at my retreats, where I ask people, you know, what are you getting out of being a victim? What are you getting out of not forgiving? Holding on to that grievance like a lifeline, like you can't let it go no matter what. Like, what's that about? You're getting something from it. And they get so pissed. They're like, what do you mean? And I said, yeah, you would think, because that's crazy behavior. You know, if you're drowning, holding on to the anvil or the anchor is not the smart thing to do, but it's what we do. And instead of choosing Holy Spirit and saying, please help me to see myself, this person, this situation differently, we're so attached to being right. So that classic quote from the Course, right? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be happy? And most people will say both.
Yeah.
If they're honest, they'll say both. But it takes something. And I would say that, you know, looking back, you know, your father's death and my mother's death, that was a something for us. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful for it. Like now, of course, I would love to have my mom back with me. She was the center of my universe, love of my life. But from that initial loss, I had to start asking those big questions at a much younger age. Mm-hmm. And it put me on this quest for like, what's this all about? at a much younger age. And I'm so grateful for that, because I wouldn't have found people like Gary and Marianne and you and the books and like all the stuff, the community of people who are not just trying to heal themselves, but heal, right, the consciousness, that one mind that we all share, so that we can all go home. You know,
Yeah.
and it's really powerful. I'm so grateful for those experiences now. And I don't try to push it away. I don't push away the shit that's uncomfortable. I'm like, bring it, because, you know, part of like fearless flow, like people always say to me, like, what is fearless flow? And I always say, well, the heart of fearless flow starts with that line of A Course in Miracles that says, if you knew who walked beside you on this way that you have chosen, fear would be, you would realize that fear is impossible.
Mm.
And so realizing that we don't have to do it on our own, we're not doing it on our own. And then another quote that really resonates with me that speaks to fearless flow is from a Buddhist teacher named Ricard Matthew or something. And he says that like genuine fearlessness arises with the confidence that we can go within ourselves and find whatever we need to handle whatever is arising. And I think those are the gifts that A Course in Miracles really gave me, was the understanding that what I sought, what I was seeking, was not something out there, that everything, like the kingdom of heaven is here and now, if I am just will receive it, if I am ready to receive it. And so like when Spirit said to you, no, Maria, you're not ready. And it's like, but look at all the tears. I'm doing the work. But we really do have to do that deep cleansing on so many levels in order to really receive it. And so I just love that you're doing this work too, and that you're, you know, teaching and trying to help people make their way, because it's hard and it's really scary when you think you're doing it on your own.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up our inner teacher, Holy Spirit, because I think that that is, you know, that's the key for me, you know, to be able to live the happiness that I'm experiencing now, has been to really develop an amazing relationship with my internal teacher. And that's what the Course is teaching us. You know, the Course is basically teaching us forgiveness, and the way to forgiveness is through Holy Spirit, and to really cultivate a relationship with that voice. And there's a beautiful lesson that's called "I'm sustained by the love of God."
Yes.
And if we are sustained by the love of God, I feel that bringing in Spirit and asking for help is our duty as teachers, as students, as whatever you want to call it, everyday people, is to really go within and ask for help. And I feel that I love how you worked with the process with your mom, of where with Spirit you worked out to see it differently. And you didn't do it by yourself. Karen, you know, the separated self, didn't do it by yourself. You had to bring in Spirit so you can start to discern, hey, you know, this story is not true that I'm saying about my mom, and this one isn't. That's what Spirit helps us with, not us, the individual selves. Spirit helps us to be able to see it differently. And that's the key teaching here, you know?
Yeah, is to really be able, right. So that's what the miracle is shift your mind from fear to love, to put on, like I always say, I call it putting on your love glasses, or seeing through a different lens. Because my human scope, like as I say, like human eyes actually don't see, right? So it's like looking for that kind of omnipotent sight where it's like we've transcended the battleground. And that's what this is really. I mean, this life can feel like such a battleground. And David Hoffmeister said something really fascinating one time in a video that I watched. And he was talking about how it doesn't actually work to bring the Course to this world and ask it to fix our problems in this world. It's about the transcendent. It's about bringing the darkness to the light. And I love that. And in the beginning, I think that's all we're doing. And we're like, you know, even with like when people talk about law of attraction or whatever, it's like, oh, I'm just going to attract all this shit to me because I think I'm lacking, because I feel like something's missing. And I'm like, just the very thought of trying to attract things to you from a place of lack is the problem. And I was like, so realizing that within us is such abundance and access to the Holy Spirit, like what a gift that is. I always say it's like being to tap into that part of your mind that's always in communion with God. And it's right there. And I think what the problem is that we're not taught that. We're not taught that as little people, that within us, we have like the bat phone to God. Do you know what I mean? It's like, no, you got to go out there and you got to get all this external validation and find, and for me, like a personal answer, like a personal analogy or story was, I just remembered, when I had turned, so 17 going on 18, and I had told myself, because the guy that killed my mother went to jail, And I was like, and nobody in my family talked about it and what had happened. It was like my mother disappeared overnight. And that's where a lot of my suffering came from, was her like disappearance. But I had told myself, okay, I'm 18 now. When I turn 18, I'm going to go to the prison. Now, again, wrote a story. Wasn't sure if they'd actually really let me talk to him, but that was my plan. I'm going to go talk to this guy and I'm going to ask him, why did you do this? Why did you do this? And as soon as I know why, as soon as I get him to tell me what happened that night and why, then I'll be at peace.
Mm.
Right? So I was like, why? So then I basically realized that that was going to be my ticket home to have peacefulness. So right before, so it's like I'm at BU, I'm at college at Boston University, and it's like finals week, and I'm like, I've got one more test. I go home tomorrow. I'm going to go do this whole thing. And my boyfriend called me, and he was acting really weird. And I said to him, what's going on? And he said, Paul, the guy that killed my mother, right, just hung himself in prison. He's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, shit. Because now my access to the answers out there, which I thought were my access to peace, it was just crushed. And I look back now and I think, oh my God, like my spiritual team was always setting me up to stop looking out there, go in, go in, go in. And so that's what ended up happening, is I realized that my peace didn't lie somewhere out there in men, in relationships, in other people, that I had to go in and do the work. And you know, I mean, all the course is just like, it's like having, in the beginning, a difficult to understand best friend, but a really good best friend that just takes your hand and walks with you and says, let me, like as Ram Dass says, you know, we're all just walking each other home. And I feel like that's what this does, is it just takes your hand so compassionately and mercifully. And also, Jesus is wicked funny, by the way, but, you know, walks you home if you're willing to do what's necessary to get there. And not everybody is.
Yeah, it's true. And that's why I always say, you know, it takes something, because like you just said, willingness. You know, in my book, I say big willingness. And the reason I say big willingness is because I just felt like the word was just, for me, I need a big willingness, not little willingness. I know that. I think that Jesus is saying little willingness just to, like, you know, not to scare us, but but listen, me, I need big, humongous, ginormous willingness because life sucked.
Yeah.
So I was just gonna go to what you were saying, is that's what the course talks about, and placing our value. So we place value on things outside of ourselves. So you were placing value on the situation with this person giving you this answer. You were placing your value, your peace outside of you. And that's what we do, you know, and I just want our listeners, you know, our viewers to, when they see this video, to see, like, where are you placing your value? Where outside of yourself, because that's what we do. We value how much money we have in the bank. We value that person that we're with, like, can they complete us? Or we're valuing, you know, Christian's going through a situation right now with his website. He's valuing his website being launched soon. And it's like all this stuff, it just takes away our peace. So what the course is telling us is to bring us back to going within, like you're talking about, and not valuing stuff for form any longer.
Yes.
With process, it's a process. And starting to focus your attention on God, and recognizing that you've never left the mind of God.
Exactly.
That's the point, you know? So
yeah, the separation has never occurred. Tiny mad idea that you forgot to laugh at. You know what I mean? And what's so fascinating about what you were just saying about value is we're so nuts that it's like, we don't just place value on positive. Is he right there? Is that what you're looking at? Is he right there, your handsome friend?
No, he's not there. I was looking at the time because the clock is over there.
Oh, yeah, I got you. Okay, because I was going to say, say hi to me. So we place value not only on good stuff, we place value on bad stuff. And it's like we place more value, meaning more power, on cancer to kill us, or on this relationship to break us, or whatever that is, than we do, than we believe in the power of God or Holy Spirit to heal us. And so our value is misplaced all the time. And I see it too with people who, like, they have plenty of time to suffer, but they don't make time to meditate or pray. They don't make time for the daily lesson, but they put enough value on their misery so they can go drink wine or get shit-faced or numb themselves, whatever their favorite form of numbing is, food, sex, shopping, porn, Facebook, doesn't matter, right? But we put plenty of value in those things rather than just getting to the cause of the problem, which is we believe that we are separate from God. And it's like, there's so, like what you said, it's like, if we could just place as much value on removing the barriers that we've created to love's presence, if we put enough energy on that, our lives would all be so much different. And I can just speak for myself is that my joy, like I'm an annoyingly happy person and it's not fake. Like I really wake up because my first priority in the morning is alignment with the divine. It's like I get online with God. I get online conscious connection to my spiritual team. I call in Jesus and Holy Spirit and I say, you guys are driving. Take the wheel, because if I'm driving the bus, we're in trouble. And being willing to ask like 100 times a day, how about this? What do you think about this? Like always checking the quality of my thoughts, the quality of my words, the quality of my actions. And are they in alignment? Because if they're not, I'm just going to suffer. And, you know, the miracle worker's prayer, like I'm here only to be truly helpful. And that's what I want to do. Like you, like that's my desire. Like I'm almost 50. The time I have left, like, I just want to be helpful I just want to be so helpful while I'm here, you know? So,
well, you've definitely been very, very helpful in this interview. So we thank you for that. And just to wrap it up here is one of the things that I'm hearing while you're speaking is your uncompromising practice. So you're practicing. Yeah. And I think that if anybody gets anything out of this is to really practice. And that's why we're talking about, you know, live, you're happy, live fearlessly. Yes. It's really practicing constantly, you know, what thoughts are you choosing? You know, are you calling Holy Spirit in? Or what are you valuing? Are you valuing something outside of you? Are you valuing God? So it's constantly, you know, are you forgiving? You know, because you want to forgive even if you don't want to forgive. So
that's right.
It's like constantly in practice. So I feel that the reason that you're so happy, which I feel that I am as well in my life, and it's not cheerleader happiness, you know, it's really, and it's because I feel like the happiness I feel is more consistent. It's not up and down like before. It was based on external things. So on Monday I was happy, and then Tuesday I felt like shit. But now I feel like happy, like all, you know, and pretty much every day. Yeah. Of course, I have my days, especially with my hormones right now with my pregnancy. But other than that, I feel that the course says this: happiness is our function, and happiness is our inheritance.
Yes.
So that means that if it's in our inheritance, it's like in our DNA, it's what we are. It's who we are, regardless of what's going on in form. And that's why, you know, true abundance is recognizing that you are as God created you. You know, that's what abundance is. Yes. So if there's anything that I want anybody take from this is to a couple of things that we've gone over, and you can also refresh if you want, because I like people to leave with little nuggets. One is what we've gone over is, you know, what story you're telling yourself, you know, and is it coming from Holy Spirit? Is it coming from fear, you know, and kind of get that in check there. Also, what are you valuing? You know, and how are you doing your forgiveness? Like you were able to forgive your mom, but you brought Holy Spirit in to help you with that. What else did we go over today that you feel could stand out to help people?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you were just saying is so important. For me, it really is asking that, not being afraid to question everything. And that question of, in this moment, am I being, with my thoughts, words, and actions, right? Am I being a host to God, or am I being a hostage to the ego? Like, how am I showing up? Because, and what are the quality of my thoughts? Because if you are choosing the ego as your teacher, then the whole experience is going to feel like a prison. And if you're choosing Holy Spirit, then everything just gets to be a classroom. And in the classroom, we're just experimenting with each other. So it's like, cut each other some slack, man, you know? And Tim Story, I don't know if you know who Tim Story is. He's a guy who teaches in LA. And he said something the other day that made me crack up. And he said, you know, as people are on their journey, on their spiritual journey, and they're growing, just allow them to suck once in a while. And I thought that was so funny. It's like, just accept where you're at. And when you're ready when you're actually ready to be happy and to let it go, ask for help. Like for me, it's like asking for help all day long, but also at some point, and this is where the practice, the daily practice comes in that you're talking about. That is non-negotiable for me. First thing in the morning, daily practice, get my mind right. But something that Ken Wapnick said was about talking about, like, if we always just keep asking Jesus for help, if we keep looking up to him as this unattainable thing, like, help me, help me, help me, we actually don't ever grow up and step into our power. We actually, our job is to become like him. And that's the work, is to actually become like that. And so that you can then help and heal other people, yourself, which is really powerful. So, I mean, I think we hit on a lot of great stuff here. And I think, you know, information lands in different people in different ways. So they'll extract what's, I think, with Holy Spirit's help, what's necessary for them. But thank you so much for having me and getting to talk with you. It's been such a pleasure. And I really, you know, you've been on my radar for a while, so it's beautiful to finally be able to connect face to face, you know?
Yeah, it's beautiful to collaborate. And I feel that, you know, there's a lot of very popular teachers that everybody know about. And then there's, you know, there's us that are just getting out there, and we're, you know, we're growing and learning. And it's just, it's nice to hear other teachers, other perspectives. And I feel that, you know, you have so much knowledge about the Course in Miracles. You hit forgiveness right on, and you understand, you know, its themes. So I feel that it's just beautiful to have you, because now people get to hear you and where you're coming from. And I feel that, especially with how you were able to get over your mom's death, I feel it's just very helpful for people, because death is such a, you know, a big topic in this clusterfuck of a world. I can't believe I just said
no, trust me. I am such a potty mouth, a Boston potty mouth. I have been refraining so hard, trying not to drop.
Channeling it through me.
Try not to drop F-bombs. But I just want to finish on this. I thought it was so fascinating. Alanis Morissette, I know you know who she is. She has a song called "Thank You," and in there's a line that landed in me so strongly the first time I heard it, and it said, "How about not equating death with stopping?" And I realized, like, oh yeah, like my relationship with my mother goes on. And before the course, I never would have been able to understand, because time and space dictates that when the body falls away, that's it. And so it's just been a beautiful opportunity to say, like I joke, like some people will say, oh, my relationship got better, you know, after they passed away, but mine has just continued, and I've been very blessed. And I just want to also acknowledge what you were just saying, that yeah, like in this day and age, especially with marketing and websites and Instagram followers and how many likes, it can be really easy to miss some gems and to not know that there are other representatives, you know, other teachers of God, other miracle workers who have a voice and have something to say, and they're valuable, and they're delivering it in a way that's very, like, for me, it's very down to earth, blue collar approach, because I want everybody to be invited to the party and not feel like, oh, I'm not smart enough to get this shit. Like, this is too much. And it's like, no. Spend some time with it. Find teachers, read Maria's book, you know, and just know that there's ways to access this material that can land in you, that makes it just a little more easy to digest and stuff, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Karen, you're like a Boston spitfire. I can't wait to share this with everyone. You've been just such a joy to join with. And again, I'm so happy that Christian opened me up to, you know, speaking to other teachers and collaborating more, because this is such a real treat for me, you know?
Yeah, me too. It's really fun. It's like finding long lost, you know, friends or siblings, and you're like, oh, we speak the same language. This is like so cool, you know? And so I can't wait to share it with my people too. And so once that link is ready, we'll spread the love. We'll get it out there.
We'll spread the love. And there you go, people. And Karen is onto something there when she says there's a lot of gems out there. So you know, it's true. There's a lot of people teaching that are very good, and they're, you know, they don't have 1 million followers, but they're very good. So that's what we're also trying to do here, is just get the word out of, like, you know, everybody, let's all join the party. We're all ultimately teachers of God. So
yes.
All right, Karen, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And both of us, it's exciting because we're both on the happy train. So choo choo.